Hey there, how there, ho there. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond. Welcome you to another Super Bowl related top 10 for Cutter Top 10. Today we are going to be looking at the top 10 most influential people in the Super Bowl, most influential players, like the great performances. These 10 have had some great performances and all that. So you know these guys are legendary and all that. So here are the top 10 Super Bowl MVPs of all time. Here we go. Number 10, Eli Manning. Two Super Bowl MVPs and two titles with the Giants over the Patriots. Both over the Patriots. Eli may have been passed over for the Hall of Fame in 2026, which I think is actually bullshit. And this is coming from a Pats fan like yours truly. I think Eli did quite well. I mean, okay, his stats are not the best in the world, and he was competing with Brady and Breeze and Manning for shit. Oh, well, paid him for shit. But the fact is that Eli won two Super Bowls. He got two Super Bowl MVPs. How many multiple time MVPs are not in the Hall of Fame? I think Jim Plunkett's in the Hall of Fame, is he not? But nevertheless, Eli should be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, look at 2008. Okay, 2012 not so much, but 2012 they actually were 9-7. The Giants were shocked the 15-1 Packers in the conference semifinals, and then in the conference championship game they went to San Francisco, capitalized on a couple of San Francisco special teams errors, and won the Super Bowl. A little bit, but 2008, you got to look at Eli. That was the best Super Bowl MVP performance was 2008 when he was on 3rd and 5, and all of a sudden he was backwards, and they almost called the play dead because he had backwards momentum. But then somehow he got away from it, threw the ball, and David Tyree made an excellent play, pinning the ball on his helmet, making sure Ronnie Harrison couldn't catch it, and then that led to Burris' touchdown. But the fact is, look at 2007, 2008 playoffs, especially all the games on Fox, including the Super Bowl. The Fox prognosticators didn't pick the Giants to beat the Bucks in Tampa in the wild card round. They didn't pick the Giants to beat the Cowboys in the divisional round. They didn't pick the Giants to beat the Packers in the conference championship game. So obviously the Giants can't win against Tampa. The Giants can't beat Dallas with Romo and T.O. And they said that the Giants can't beat the Packers in the cold and with Brett Favre at pivot. And obviously nobody would have picked them against the Pats in the Super Bowl, but the Giants used ball control just like 1991 for that massive upset. Eli Manning actually is worth a second look. And this is coming from an endorsement from a Pats fan. Okay, number 9, Ray Lewis. Yeah, I know his whole off the field crapola, especially in 2000, kind of made him look ugly. But Ray Lewis was known for his dominant defense. Now, there have been many defensive players who've been named Super Bowl MVP. Uh, Dexter Jackson in 2003 for the Bucks. Well, they picked off Rich Gannon 5 times. Malcolm Smith for his efforts in 2014 in that blow fest. I can't say it right, but yeah, that bomb fest, the Legion of Boom fest, if you will. And even Chuck Howley in Super Bowl 5, even though his team lost. But Ray Lewis was huge. The Baltimore defense in 2000 was just fantastic. And it kind of had to be because, Baltimore didn't really have a good offense. They had Priest Holmes and Jamal Lewis in the backfield. They also had Trent Dilfer. Trent Dilfer, well, I'll be. I want people to find out who the hell said that line in like that NFL Films thing. Trent Dilfer, well, I'll be. So anyway, yeah. Anyway, Ray Lewis, defensive MVP, Super Bowl 35. Well, the Ravens should have been named, the defense should have been named the shared MVP. They only gave up 7 points, but that was because of a kickoff return for a touchdown. Otherwise, the Giants had nothing. Kerry Collins had nothing. And this is a team that demolished Minnesota 41-zip in the conference championship game. And they couldn't score against the pesky Ravens? Yeah, the Ravens defense. Ray Lewis did win a second ring in 2013 before he retired. He was then named MVP, but yeah, Ray Lewis was still there for the taking. Number 8 is Emmett Smith. Emmett Smith has had some great moments as the running back for the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas made some big shuffling moves. I don't know what the trade was to get Emmett Smith, like the pick for Emmett Smith, but I think they traded down to get Emmett Smith in the 1990 draft from the Gators. Yeah, Emmett Smith. Well, Ray Lewis also was passed over. He was from the University of Miami, and everyone passed him over until the Ravens picked him up. Eli from Ole Miss. He was the number one pick, refused to go to San Diego. Anyway, Emmett Smith was a good running back. He was part of the triplets, the quarterback of Troy Aikman, the running back Emmett Smith, and the wide receiver Michael Irvin. Emmett Smith was fantastic. Super Bowl 28, he was named MVP. He had a dazzling performance. But the one thing that was dazzling was what he did in the regular season. Dallas was in trouble. Emmett Smith was a holdout. He held out for a better contract the first few games of the season, and the Dallas Cowboys started out 0-2. Emmett finally got his contract. Dallas gelled. Dallas actually had to play the Giants on the final day of the season for not only the NFC East title, but for the number one overall seed, which meant the NFC stuff would go right through their specific stadium. And Emmett Smith, despite injuring his shoulder on that unforgiving Giant Stadium turf, still put up 130 plus yards, got the winning, and helped Dallas get the winning field goal in overtime, and Dallas were the one seeds in the NFC. So Emmett Smith played his damn heart out in that season. Number 7 is Patrick Mahomes, multiple time Super Bowl MVP and dazzling quarterback from Texas Tech University. Patrick Mahomes was kind of an afterthought, some people said. Kansas City were lucky to draft him, and he was the backup to Alex Smith. And, Mahomes was a good passer. Texas Tech, known for their passing offense. Name one good running back from Texas Tech. Maybe Bam Morris. But the fact is that, yeah, Patrick Mahomes was just that damn good. People didn't realize how good he was. Well, Patrick Mahomes, his father, was a pitcher in the major leagues with Minnesota and Texas. Mahomes gave up a home run to uh, the guy in 2001 who hit for the cycle, Jeff Fry, who was very light hitting, but Jeff Fry hit for the cycle, and his home run was off Patrick Mahomes' father. But the fact is that, yeah, Patrick Mahomes helped Kansas City out. He got to be the pivot for the Chiefs, and then in the 2020s, they have been the dominant team. Yes, they lost last year's Super Bowl, but they made a Super Bowl, so yeah. They were looking to go back to back to back, a three-time championship thing that everyone was happy. Like all the back to backs were happy. It didn't happen. The Packers of the 60s, the Steelers of the 70s were happy. The Niners of the 90s were happy. And the Patriots of the 2000s were happy that it was not a three-peat. But yeah, Patrick Mahomes still is pretty good. Number 6 is Peyton Manning. Peyton wins 2 Super Bowls with 2 different teams, the Colts and the Broncos, from the University of Tennessee, number 1 draft pick. The Colts knew what they were doing winning it. They got Peyton. He was not great his first season, but by the second and third seasons, they picked up the pace. And Peyton was a good quarterback. The only problem was he couldn't take care of Tom Brady. And we will talk about Tom Brady later. But yeah, Peyton just couldn't get his way. But by 2007, when they beat the Pats in one of the biggest comebacks in playoff history, well, not by points, but by standards, they got to the Super Bowl against the Chicago Bears. Despite a Devin Hester kickoff return on the first play of the game, the Colts still played their hearts out. Peyton did his job, was named MVP, and the Colts won the Super Bowl for the first time as the Indianapolis Colts, not the Baltimore Colts. 2010, he should have done better. But unfortunately, New Orleans, the city of his birth, because he grew up in New Orleans because Arch Manning, his father, became the quarterback for the Saints. And practically, Peyton was under the shadow of Arch Manning. Peyton went to Tennessee, not like Eli, who went to Ole Miss, his father's alma mater. Peyton wanted to start his career, and he did. So yeah, the Colts dumped him off after missing a year with neck surgery. So they went for Andrew Luck. What the fuck? And then Denver decided we need a quarterback. They got Peyton Manning, and he nearly got them to the Super Bowl in 2013. They unfortunately fell to the Ravens in one of the the miracle at Mile High, if you will, after Jacoby Jones, recently deceased, scored that touchdown. But anyhow, Peyton was back in 2014. Unfortunately, he got blown up by Seattle's Legion of Boom defense, making the Broncos lose their fifth Super Bowl and breaking the tie for the most Super Bowls lost by a franchise. At least Denver won a few. And in 2016, when they beat Carolina, the 15-1 Panthers, Peyton retired on top, saying 18 years was a good time and all that. Number 5 is Bart Starr. Bart Starr was the MVP of the first two Super Bowls and a great quarterback for the Packers pre-Super Bowl. Bart Starr came from the University of Alabama in, I think, 1956 or something like that. He was drafted late. But anyway, Bart Starr still played like a man on a mission. The Packers in the 1960s were NFL dominance, winning many NFL championships, of course, pre-Super Bowl. And then, when they needed a chance, Super Bowl one, when the AFL champion Kansas City Chiefs took on the NFL champion Green Bay Packers, Starr set the tone. He threw a touchdown to Boyd Dowler, who allegedly was hung over. No, Max McGee, excuse me. Max McGee, because he was kind of hung over thinking he wasn't going to play, but Dowler got hurt. So Max McGee got the first touchdown in history. And then, you know, Super Bowl two. Bart Starr had a great performance, a better performance, I think, in the conference championship game against Dallas, because it was for the Ice Bowl. It was the Ice Bowl, not. People think that Green Bay Dallas the Ice Bowl was before Super Bowl one, but no, that was before Super Bowl two. And Bart Starr helped the Packers out with that quarterback sneak and to beat the Cowboys and then to beat the Raiders in the Super Bowl. He set the standard for quarterback excellence in championship games. Boy, howdy did he. Number 4 is Jerry Rice, who is a Super Bowl MVP and has Super Bowl records for receiving yards and touchdowns. He should have won a second one, kind of, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Jerry Rice is the highest non quarterback on this list. Anyway, Jerry Rice was a pretty good wide receiver from Mississippi Valley State, basically kind of the IAA school. Well, I call it IAA, not FCS. Anyway, Jerry Rice was a good wide receiver. San Francisco saw something in the third round and drafted Rice, even though the Pats could have taken him but failed. But Jerry Rice was just talented. He was just that damn good, especially in the regular season. He set the touchdown record, not just for receivers, but for all players. When he did that against the Raiders, he had 125 at one time, which was pretty good. He was always in the Super Bowl because the Niners seemed to make the Super Bowl every time, like 1989, 1990, 1995. He was in 3 Super Bowls by himself, and he dazzled. Dazzled. So, yeah, he really dazzled and all that. I feel like I'm missing a Super Bowl. 89, 90, 95. Yeah? 82. What was the other one? Oh, 85. 85 before he came into the league. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, he won 3 Super Bowl rings, receiving yards and touchdowns, and just playing good. Number 3 is Terry Bradshaw. Terry Bradshaw won 2 Super Bowl MVPs, helping Pittsburgh win 4 rings in the 1970s. Pittsburgh were a forgettable franchise. People forget that Pittsburgh was not always a great franchise because once upon a time, Pittsburgh were very inept. Try Cleveland Browns inept in the 1960s, if you will. The Steelers just couldn't get to the playoffs. They were floundering, but Art Rooney and Dan Rooney did their job and hired Chuck Noll as head coach. Pittsburgh had the number 1 pick in the 1970 draft, so they took Terry Bradshaw from Louisiana Tech and were riding him. He was a good quarterback. Pittsburgh did have the running attack of Frank, but somehow, with Bradshaw, Pittsburgh's fortunes changed and all that. So the Steelers took home 4 Super Bowls in the 1970s. I know technically the fourth was 1980, but technically the season was 1979. So that pretty much means that, it was the 1970s. But I mean, when you look at the fact that Bradshaw won a couple of MVPs, he won 4 Super Bowls. Lynn Swann won a Super Bowl MVP, and Franco Harris won another MVP. But yeah, Bradshaw could have easily won all 4. But yeah, It was him. He had those magic passes, and he had those great Super Bowls against the Cowboys. Number two is Joe Cool, as in Joe Montana from the University of Notre Dame. 3 Super Bowl MVPs for the Niners. Joe Montana was undersized by many, but people remember that in the Super Bowl, Super Bowl, but the Cotton Bowl in his uh, senior season against the Houston Cougars, he had to sit out most of the third quarter because he was running the chills. So they had to be heating him up with soup and all that. And Montana made a clutch play as Notre Dame beat Houston for the Cotton Bowl title. Niners took him in the third round, and he was okay. The next year in 1980, he started games and he had that big comeback against the Saints. Of course, in 1982, he helped the Niners win the Super Bowl. Well, they got to the Super Bowl thanks to the catch by Dwight Clark and all that. And people forget that Dwight Clark's catch didn't seal the game. Dallas was down the field trying to go for the field goal to win the game, but they fumbled the ball. So yeah, Joe Montana did that. And then 1985 against Marino, what they call one of the best quarterback matchups of all time, Montana versus Marino at Super Bowl 19. And then in 1989 against the Bengals in a very close game. But Joe Montana proved his Joe Cool status. There's like 3 minutes, 50 seconds left. The Bengals were up by 3. And Joe Montana calls a timeout, and then he looks around the field and tells his teammates, "Hey, is that John Candy?" I mean, Joe Montana was just Joe Cool. He threw passes to Jerry Rice, and then John Taylor caught the winning touchdown in the game. 1990, he showcased why the Niners were that good, taking care of business against Denver. And in 1995, well, yeah, I shouldn't say 95, but yeah, Montana was good. And then he had that massive injury in the NFC title game against the Giants. That ruined their momentum. The Giants would go on to win the NFC title game in San Francisco, and I think the Niners would have won the Super Bowl from the Bills. Of course, Montana would play only one game in 91-92, and then he decided to flee for Kansas City, which was shocking that Joe Montana would do such a thing like that. But with Steve Young firmly in place, what are you going to do? So Joe Montana played for Kansas City, helped them get to the 1994 AFC title game, but lost to the Bills. But yeah, Joe Montana still did his job. And number one by a long shot. Well, who am I wearing? So what you're wearing is who you're wearing. And of course, number 12 on the shoulders tells you who number one has to be. It's not for bias. The guy won 5 Super Bowl MVPs, like 5. And the guy's won 7 rings. Got 7 rings like that. So, I would say Sabrina Carpenter or something. That can't be right. Who sings 7 rings? Can't remember. But yeah, the 5 titles and all that. Like, the guy was great and all that. He was just some 6th-round pick from the University of Michigan, despite winning the Orange Bowl in 2000 against Bama. He still was not drafted high. There were many people like Giovanni Carmosi and Chris Redmond drafted higher than him. Nevertheless, Tom Brady basically blossomed. He would be the backup for the Pats and then thrust in action in the 2001 season after the Pats started out 0-2 thanks to it. Mo Lewis hit on Drew Bledsoe. They had to start Brady, and he somehow got them to 11-5, won the AFC East, or the 2 seed in the AFC, got them that big win over the Raiders, tech rule and all. Yeah, I know the Raiders have a legit reason to have beef. But here's the thing about this: Adam Vinatieri could have easily missed those field goals in the snow, and then we wouldn't be talking about the tech rule game. Nevertheless, Brady was there, and then when the Rams tied the game at 17 in Super Bowl 36. John Madden suggested on Fox, and I was watching, of course, the Fox/Global broadcast. He was like, you know, he was like saying Tom Brady at the Super Bowl, you know, they should just play for overtime. But he didn't. He played for the win. Vinatieri kicked the field goal inside, and Lonnie Paxton did his nose angel. And then, the Pats lost on the last day of the season to fall out of the playoffs for 2003. And then the next year, in 2004, of course, when I say 2004, I mean 03-04. In 2004, they got to the AFC title game. They beat Peyton Manning. They faced the Carolina Panthers in one of the most suggestive periods of all time. The fourth quarter saw 36 points, and the Pats won on another unintentional field goal late in the game. 2005, another win over the Eagles, taking down T.O. You know, the Pats had to take down a 15-1 Pittsburgh Steelers team in the conference championship game. That's hard to do. I mean, the Eagles seem to be a little easier. And then, you got yourself the failure in 2008 winning the Super Bowl. Of course, everyone was pissed off, me included. You go 16-0 in the regular season, but you can't win the Super Bowl. Why? And worst of all was Brady week 1 injured torn his ACL and was out for the season. The Pats almost got to the playoffs thanks to Matt Castle. They almost did, but lost on tie breaks. But Brady came back, and Brady was good, but the Pats just couldn't get to the Super Bowl for beans. It took the 10-year run till 2015 for the Pats to finally make the Super Bowl once again, and they did. The Seahawks should have won that Super Bowl, and this is coming from a Pats fan, but they didn't want to put Marshawn Lynch or anybody. You could have had Russell Wilson try to dive in from the 1 yard line, but they didn't, and the Pats won the Super Bowl. Then in 2017, the Pats went back to the Super Bowl, down 28-3. The Falcons choked it. You know what happened. And then 2018, the loss to Philly because of the Philly special. And then 2019, beating the Rams in a boring Super Bowl, but a win's a win. And maybe this time the Pats will win 2026. But remember, Brady won the MVP as a member of the Bucks. New England let him go. Tampa said, "Screw it, we'll take him." And he worked out in the Florida sunshine. Tampa hosted the 2021 Super Bowl, won it, pissing me off in the process because I didn't want Tom Brady to win it in a non-Patriots jersey. But what can you do? You just can't do anything. So anyway, thanks for watching. I'm Jeff Diamond. Adieu.